Hi everyone, it's Ren here. Hope you're doing well, guys. Happy Wednesday. It's actually Tuesday currently, and it's the end of the day. I just want to make sure that you get your video tomorrow, so I'm recording after my work is over, my 9 to 5. So this is commitment. I hope you see it this way. Now, I want to pursue the conversation about Enneagram and INFJs, and particularly focusing on one Enneatype, type 2, because I think it'd be easier to release slightly shorter videos on each type, rather than just trying to kind of chuck them all together into the same video that ends up bloated, and at the same time frustratingly not covering each type enough, right? So it's better to actually focus on the different types, and today we're going to be looking at the relationship between type 2 and INFJ. Okay, now I want to make a quick announcement also, which might well be of interest to you, and it is that it looks as if the new book, The Infinite Soul, will be available for pre-orders on Amazon this week, right? So I will keep you posted as regards when the book goes live, and of course when I have it in my hands I'll present it to you as a product. But just to let you know, just take a note, like write this on a post-it or wherever you want, that it's coming soon, likely this week, that the pre-orders will be available. And I don't intend to keep, like the book at the pre-order stage for a long time. So, okay, so speaking of books, you can still get my book, The Ecstatic Soul, the prequel, soon to be a prequel, still the reference book on the INFJ, link is below, and my novel, The Infinite Castle. There's still many of you who are still getting this novel. Main characters in INFJ, at least that's the rumor. So get a copy, support my channel. It's a link to Patreon that really helps with the channel as well, so don't underestimate it. So I said in my video last Sunday that there's roughly 6 types that are associated with INFJ, 6 Enneagram types. There's 1, there's 2, there's 4, there's 5, there's 6, and there's 9. And I wanted to, and what I did, in fact, in the video is I kind of went for an update on which Enneatypes are the most common for INFJs. It's been commonly assumed that 2 and 4 are in the top 3 most common, and that for the number 3 spot, or to be part of that kind of dominating triptych, it's often been a bit of a debate whether we want to give that spot to 1 or we wanted to give it to 9, right? It's been assumed that that type 5, type 6, and what's the remaining one that I haven't covered? I said there were, so 2, 1, 2, yeah, no, that's it, type 5 and type 6 not really considered usually, including by myself, and until recently, as dominant for INFJs. They exist, but they're not so dominant. So they would not be in the top 3. Whether it's 1 or 9 in the top 3 is an open debate, and usually 2 and 4 are considered solidly part of the top 3. And what I was suggesting in the video is that we just drop that. We keep the 6. This is the 6 Enneatypes, that are considered correlative to INFJs, because that's true. I'm not changing that, and I'm not changing the fact that it'd be very uncommon for an INFJ to be a 7, an 8, or a 3, right? There's probably no INFJ 8s, right? And very few 7s and 3s. The other 6 exist. They're there. But like I was suggesting in my previous video, my view has now shifted to the 3 most common being in my opinion, 5, 6, and again, 1 and or 9, right? It's between 1 and 9, right? Possibly, in fact, 9. And then you'd get in the less common triptych, the 2 and the 4, and then possibly the 1, okay? This marks a significant update and shift in my view, and goes against the current. Like I was saying, it's an interesting question. Why does it go against the current? It goes against the current because, again, the INFJ1 is a figure that's very familiar to us. The INFJ 2 is a familiar figure, at least we think, to us. And so is the INFJ 4, at least we think. So I want to start this video discussing the INFJ 2 because I think that if we look a bit more closely at the case of this INFJ, we'll realize that both that it's less common than you think, and also that probably a lot of INFJ 2s have 2 in their fixes, that is to say in their tri-type, but they don't have a core Enneagram 2 type. Now, why does it actually make sense once you take a step back to think that type 2 is not going to be the most common for INFJs? Well, I implied as much in my previous video. A type 2 is a type that's resolutely social and turned toward others. So this should alert you to the fact that this is bound to be a strongly correlated type to extroversion. INFJs are just not often introverted, or I should say extroverted enough to be 2s, at least dominant 2s. And it's kind of as simple as that. You know, the mistake that INFJs make is that they often think, well, I'm altruistic, and therefore I'm highly altruistic, and therefore that must mean that I'm a 2. Right? So number one, like I said, you might have a strongly influential 2 fix in your tri-type, but not a core, but it might still be influential, right? In the same way that type 4 in my tri-type is probably influential on my overall type, even though my dominant type is probably 6, okay? So you might well be something else than 2, but, you know, have a strong 2 influence, nothing to prevent that. Or you might be thinking that altruism is being a 2, whereas actually altruism is potentially correlatable to just about any type, because altruism is a character trait that transcends Enneagram types. You can't just say, like, right off the bat, that if someone is a type 8, they're not altruistic. You can't say that about a type 3, you can't say that about a type 7, you can't say that. So in a sense, the quality of being altruistic or considering oneself to be altruistic is just not going to be that informative. The important thing about the 2 is that their sense of self-worth, right? Their sense of self-worth, you could even go so far as to say their sense of identity. No. Someone appeared. Their sense of identity is highly linked to their being able to project themselves toward others and being helpers and servants of service, performing acts of service. You know, we like to talk about the language of love and acts of service, but that's a very 2 concept. But notice there's a difference between being altruistic just because you are altruistic and being helper and others oriented because that's how you derive your sense of self-worth. It's quite different. Once you move into this more specific territory, you'll start noticing there's far fewer INFJs. There will be many more ESFJs and ENFJs, possibly more ISFJs, although that remains an open question, but far fewer INFJs. Because INFJs are, in fact, often very bound up in their own thought processes. The quality of being a dominant, introverted, intuitive means that you're alienated as a dominant mode of relating to the world, as you know, the Ecstatic Soul explains at length. You're alienated. You have to make a big effort to bridge that gap of alienation. It's exhausting. You're heavily oriented to inner contemplation of archetypes and what goes on in your psyche, without a need to latch onto anything specific, so the contemplation may last a long time. In fact, you may end up loving your contemplation a bit too much and becoming what I call solipsistic in my new book. Now that's very non-2. But notice you can be all the things I've just described and be altruistic. Sounds strange, but you can be, but doesn't mean you're a 2. So being a 2, as an INFJ, they start noticing it really requires a formidable ability for the INFJ to counterbalance this anti-solipsism with highly proactive and developed FE social orientation toward others and their needs. It exists, it happens. Some INFJs have this remarkable sense of balance. It's just not very common, and it makes sense that it should not be so common. Okay. I said in the video before that often I think that those 2s are 9s, because often those the type 9, the conflict avoidance of the type 9, the tendency to seek peace, could often come to color how an INFJ interprets their mode of altruism. But in fact, that mode really dissolves into and is better definable and interpretable as a type 9 kind of altruism and empathy. Often there is still, in terms of the heart fix, a 2 orientation as opposed to a 4 or a 3. So you'll find a lot of INFJs that are, in terms of tri-type, 926 or 925. Very common tri-type. That still doesn't mean you're a 2, you're a 9. Okay? Sometimes you have 529s. I've met INFJs who are 529s. Quite common, more than you think. But we'll wait until the video on type 5 to dig a bit deeper. But that was the essential point I was trying to carry regarding type 2. It's not as common as you think, and mostly just because it imposes, being a dominant type 2 imposes extroverted social demands on an INFJ that usually the INFJ is not cognitively able to meet. And they're going to be directed elsewhere, even though type 2 as a fix may well inform your personality. So next time, I'm not sure which type we'll be looking at. Maybe we'll be looking at type 4, since I think it's less common than you think also, and that might be more controversial. But until then, guys, take care, and I will see you on Saturday. Bye-bye.